to Simply Local. I'm Pam Uten, Family and Consumer Science Agent with the Cooperative Extension Program.
And I'm David Goforth. We're here today in the Cooperative Extension Teaching Kitchen, and we're talking about coleslaw.
Coleslaw, oh boy.
Yeah. You know what coleslaw, you know where the name come from?
You told me, but I've forgotten.
It is an English, a European word for cabbage family, or cabbage salad is basically what coleslaw, cabbage salad is what it means. And most of the time we talk about slaw, we refer to cabbage, but coleslaw in particular, we're talking about cabbage. Now these cabbage are some I planted in my garden last around August, September time frame.
Okay.
I picked them before it got cold in November, and these I put in the refrigerator.
Okay.
And here it is February. I pull them out of the refrigerator, and we're going to make
so
slaw out
those
of
are
them
4
today.
months old, really?
Well, they store pretty well.
Store.
That's the point. And I had one last night that actually I had stored on my porch, an unheated porch, and I fed it last night to a church dinner. So they can last in pretty good situations like that, and you can still be local here in February. So to do the coleslaw, the first thing, now there's a little bit of damage here over the storage, and so I'll take that off and maybe go down
Another layer
on the other side. And now here's, Pam, where we're going to argue. I think all the bacteria has been on the surface, and if you're washing this here, you're doing it for some reason other than bacteria at this point in time. I didn't spray pesticides on these, by the way, and I know where they come from, and so I'm pretty happy about them.
Well, in Family and Consumer Science, we are told to wash all vegetables before we cut them. And the recommendation from Family and Consumer Science would be definitely to wash this cabbage, because even though you've taken the outer leaves off, we just believe in washing everything.
I know you do. It's more of a religious belief than a scientific belief.
It is not. It is a scientific belief.
Now, you told me this was so easy to do. And so I'm going to start on it here. But I wind up with a lot of extra large stuff. And so I normally don't do this until I'm hungry for some salad, and I'll eat the large stuff and I'll show you how to save the small stuff. And now what I found here is if you start slow and don't go, and the one thing is, I cut this in a pretty big slice, and that's what I found is you cut it in bigger slices, it'll do better. You'll have less big pieces and bigger slices. And if you go at it sort of slow here, particularly getting started, you'll do a better job too.
You know, I love slaw now. But I think it's one of those things you have to develop a taste for. Would you agree with that? Or you just were born loving slaw?
I was born loving slaw.
You were born?
I had to develop a taste for a few things, and there's a few things I don't like, believe it or not, but slaw's never been one of them. In fact, you ought to just try one of these things right here.
That's okay.
Just chew on that right there and see how sweet that is while I'm getting this done here. Isn't that a sweet cabbage? Yeah. I've had a few people tell me this was the sweetest cabbage they have ever eaten in their life.
Aren't winter cabbages usually sweeter, or did I dream that up? I dreamed that up?
You know, you get better growing conditions a lot of times in the fall of the year than you do in the spring of the year. The spring of the year, it gets so warm so quick. Cabbage prefers to grow at about 70 degrees. And so when it gets real warm like that in the spring of the year, you start getting a hot taste to it. So yeah, fall cabbage normally tastes a little bit better.
Well, I went to school at Appalachian, and when I was there were fields and fields and fields of cabbage growing, and I guess that would be perfect weather for cabbage.
You get
the cool temperature of
elevation up there give you an advantage on that. And there is a lot of cabbage grown up there, but then in the winter months you get down to the coast, there's a lot of cabbage grown down there, and of course I grew these in my own garden, my own backyard. Okay, I'm getting some stuff here. Let me dump that real quick.
While you're grating and shredding, I just kind of like to add, if you have children at home and they try the slaw one time, or try any food one time and they don't particularly like it, don't stop then. Go ahead and continue offering your children new food, small bites of it. It could take up to 20 tries for a child to like a new food. Now, I'm not criticizing slaw. I'm just talking about slaw in general and foods in general. I'm talking about foods in general.
Pam, I use a little
just
bit.
Because my children didn't like slaw, I guess that's why.
I use a slightly different technique, Pam. If they didn't eat it at lunch, it was back on the table at supper. They didn't eat it at supper, it was back on the table at breakfast.
So they knew they had to eat it.
Eventually they got around to tasting it. All right, you get down to the core, and it's not a problem to get a little bit of the core in there. you don't want to get any of your thumb in there, so be careful with that. But the core, when we were kids, Mom would grate this stuff down and we'd eat that core as kids, and I know a lot of other people did that too. All right, that's about as far as I can get without drawing the blood.
Okay.
All right. All right, we got enough over here to get started
Definitely.
and show you what we are doing here. Now, basically what you want to do is some vinegar, and pretty much once you get the vinegar in there, it's coleslaw. But there's some other things that we'll add too. In this case, for the vinegar, I'm gonna actually use the juice off of this squash relish that I canned last year. So I canned some squash relish, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little bit of salt in here, not salt, but sugar. And now this cabbage is real sweet, and I'm not gonna put the full amount, but I like to put just a little bit of sugar to sort of draw some moisture out of the, osmotically draw some moisture out, and that'll give you a little bit better quality slaw. Mix that up there. Then I'm gonna dump the vinegar out like this, and get us a little bit of vinegar here.
So a person could use any pickle juice, is that what you're saying? Or you would like the sweet pickle juice?
Yeah. This is squash relish here, and probably about, yay, we got the recipe on the tape. But the other, the B&B.
Bread and butter.
Yep, which we call bread and mayonnaise now because we don't use butter, right? Nutritionalists, we don't use the butter.
Well, they're called bread and butter pickles.
But we use mayonnaise instead of bread and mayonnaise, right? Okay, stir that up right there. And you have got a pretty good slaw here. Now this slaw, one, you can stick it in the refrigerator, and it'll last a couple of weeks. Now a lot of people like to add a little bit of oil. In fact, mayonnaise is the one we can use now. Of course, mayonnaise wasn't invented years ago, and they would use dairy butter or something like that. Some places they use buttermilk, I found. Not around here.
That doesn't sound too appealing, does it?
Not to me, it don't. But anyway, you could mix, you don't have to mix the oil in there. I have just mixed a little bit of olive oil in here with it. But what I'll do now is, for this to last, the oxygen is the problem. And so I'll push it down like this, and sometimes I'll put a piece of plastic wrap over it and stick that in the refrigerator. And like I said, you can get that to last for a couple of weeks with no problem. So that's one way of making a slaw. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you another technique for something we have around here that's called red slaw.
Oh yes.
So I need something to put this in, Pam. If you give me something to put that in, I'll grate me another little bit here, and we'll.
Okay, go ahead and put that in there. All right.
Or we could just use that bowl over here. Let me have that bowl.
Okay.
Set that to the side. There we go.
All right.
We're dealing now.
Okay. Now, David, you're going to add some things to make a red slaw, but red cabbage is popular too.
The red cabbage, in fact, a lot of people just use it for salad, put a little bit of color in the salad. So it's very popular. It's harder to grow, though.
Is it harder to grow?
It is.
Okay.
And I wouldn't even suggest trying to grow it in the spring. So just try to grow it in the fall of the year if you want to try that. But again, you'll find the regular cabbage is a lot easier to grow. Now, you can add a few other things, and I've brought a couple of them here. Carrots are available this time of the year.
Yes.
I pull those carrots out of my garden Sunday, and so you could chip one of those up and get a little bit of color in your coleslaw. And the crushed tomatoes there are some that are canned, they're available canned this time of year. And there are certain restaurants in this area, if you know where you're going and know what to ask for, you can get what they call a fish slaw.
A fish slaw, which is the red slaw?
No, it's they use crushed tomatoes in there with the cabbage to make the slaw. And sometimes you use onions too in that particular one. But the other thing that I've found, and I haven't used it myself, but the other thing that people use is sometimes they put nuts in there, you know, like sunflower seeds or even slivers of almond or something like that for sort of a nut and apples.
A crunchy taste.
You're right. Okay. Let me. Well, we've got enough to show them what we're going to do here.
Did a great job grating that. Looks nice and even.
All right. Okay. the first thing we want to do with the slaw is we put a little bit more cider vinegar into the red slaw, and I've run out of pickle juice, so I'm going to just use plain apple cider vinegar.
Apple cider vinegar.
You know, actually, it's better to do this in another container.
And you can kind of measure how much you're putting in?
No, it's to mix it up.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is some homemade ketchup, and I really think you ought to try this, Pam, but you don't want to, so let's move along. Now, you put about some ketchup in here too.
So if a person didn't have homemade ketchup, they could use commercial ketchup, of course.
The advantage to homemade ketchup is I do not have high fructose corn syrup in there.
And you know exactly what's in there.
I do. I've got molasses in there actually.
Oh.
Instead of high fructose corn syrup, but it is a little bit time consuming. I figure this is worth about $2 an hour my time cooking up the ketchup, and so a person could take tomato paste and use regular molasses with that too, and put that together. I want to put a little bit of sugar in this, and again, we don't need much. I'm cutting it down because I've got less amount
just
here.
Just a smaller amount,
right.
yes.
And we can, Texas Pete, which is made in Winston-Salem.
Yes,
it's not made in Texas.
It's a North Carolina product.
And do a little bit of that.
Several good size drops in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people would have put a lot more than I did.
Really?
Yep. All right. Now, I've got a fork around here somewhere.
Can you use, well?
Yeah, that fork, there's my fork.
I think that's your fork.
All right. And we put this in here, and that's probably about enough. May have mixed up a little bit. May have to cut some more, do some more cabbage. All right, a little bit more. And remember, you'll pull some juice out of the cabbage itself. Get it all mixed in here. Now, being we used a little bit more vinegar here, and we're not using the oil as much, this will last about 6 weeks in the refrigerator.
In the refrigerator.
Yeah, it's got to be refrigerated. You don't want to put it outside, but in the refrigerator, you can pull this out for about 6 weeks. And this is what we know around here as barbecue slaw. Now, one of the variations on barbecue slaw is they'll actually use barbecue sauce for some of the ketchup. So, you know, just switch this out. Whatever ketchup you take out, put barbecue sauce instead, and that will work for you real well. But right there we are, and that is a good food. It's not real high in calories, but it's got minerals. It's got the
fresh cabbage, and
yes.
just a little bit of seasoning.
So,
and cabbage from your garden.
There we are, and that'll go real good with a barbecue sandwich, won't it?
Yes, it will. Well, it's certainly fun to eat simply and eat locally.